The Boston Foundation, Greater Boston's community foundation for more than 90 years, is honored to present tonight's special, Call to Revolution, Crisis and Opportunity in Boston. In addition to a proud tradition of grant-making, the Boston Foundation is also a civic leader, dedicated to providing fresh information and bringing people together to address the critical competitive challenges we face as a city and region. The Boston Foundation, innovation, information, impact.
Good evening. Welcome to A Call to Revolution, Crisis and Opportunity in Boston. I'm Chet Curtis here with Paul Grogan, President and CEO of the Boston Foundation. Our focus tonight, innovation. In a few minutes, some of the region's top out-of-the-box thinkers will be joining us in studio. They tackle some of the subjects in the Boston Foundation's Indicators Report, the crises and opportunities we face in housing, jobs, healthcare, inequality, and energy dependence. And tonight, Paul Grogan will be our guide, taking us on a tour through innovative Boston.
Well, Chet, it's clear we need a trained and educated workforce to drive this knowledge-based economy forward. And demographic trends make it clear that we're going to have to include in that workforce unskilled immigrants and inner-city youth, people who haven't been doing very well in this economy. But now, the Year Up program is training those young adults for the 21st century.
So this is the CPU.
Technology is the topic of today's lesson. What makes a computer compute? It's something 20-year-old Angela Callan never thought she'd learn.
I mean, I knew about computers, but nothing about the hardware components and nothing like that.
Angela is a single mom with a 3-year-old son. She has been in and out of homeless shelters over the years, but now she is working towards a better future as one of 245 young adults from Boston gaining new skills and work experience as part of a rigorous year-long training program called Year Up. For the first 6 months, students focus on technical training and learn Year Up's professional ABCs, attitude, behavior, and communication.
They just really prepare us for the workplace. They go over everything from business dress to business etiquette to how to write emails, how to speak with the boss.
Students then put their skills to use in apprenticeships at some of the city's most prominent companies, businesses like CVS, State Street, and Bank of America. The students get a stipend, college credit, and experience. The companies get much-needed entry-level workers.
In Boston alone, we have 90,000 unfilled jobs because we don't have the skilled workforce to actually take those jobs.
Founder Gerald Chertavian first got the idea for Year Up while volunteering as a big brother in New York City.
I saw that there were a tremendous number of young people and young adults in our urban areas who didn't have the opportunity to get into the economic mainstream of this country, and I thought there was a tremendous waste of human capital at a time when this country has no human capital to waste.
Year Up works directly with its business partners to find out exactly what they need in terms of skilled labor, then train students to fit those needs.
We have to have a workforce that meets the needs of 21st century employers. So skills like critical thinking, problem solving, communication skills, teamwork skills are required to help our country compete globally and to win globally.
It costs Year Up $24,000 to train each student for the year. Year Up's business partners fund about 2/3 of the cost for each student they employ.
To have access to a program like this, where we can help develop the individual, they get exposed to the company, it's very much in our own interest. It's enlightened self-interest, I think, to have a partnership like this.
This is a class about numbers, compound interest in this case. But Year Up's numbers as a program are awfully good. Nearly 90% of their graduates are finding work at $15 an hour or more. So this is an increasingly recognized success, and now that success is being exported to other cities across the country.
This year we'll serve 600 plus students in Massachusetts, New York, Washington, Rhode Island, San Francisco, and soon Atlanta.
Year Up graduates earn an average of $30,000 a year, but the payoff is much more than just a paycheck. Angela, if you hadn't found out about Year Up, what do you think you'd be doing right now?
Honestly, another job, like not even thinking about a career. Before Year Up, I really didn't. I mean, I had plans I had for the future, but I didn't really have them exactly mapped out in detail. Like now, after coming to Year Up, I kind of have my 6-month plan, my 1-year plan where I see myself out. Like, I just really have a better plan that's more clear and more specific.
Sounds like a bigger plan.
Yes, definitely.
And Paul, what an extraordinary program, an innovative program, and you can tell how wonderful it is by the smile on that young woman's face.
Absolutely, and these are kids that mainstream institutions, for one reason or another, really aren't reaching, aren't motivating, and this program really turns them on. The excitement in the classroom that I experienced, and the enthusiasm of the employers that are hiring these kids, and really paying for them as well. I mean, Year Up now is earning a lot of its revenue from the fees that the companies pay them. So this is a real success story in a critical area.
Indeed, and I was surprised because I didn't realize that the number was as high. Nearly 90% of the young men and women in the program find jobs.
It's an astonishing success rate.
Indeed. All right, now we bring you our own panel of innovators. Dr. Gary Gottlieb is president and CEO of Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. Dr. Joseph Aoun, president of Northeastern University. And Linda Whitlock is Nicholas president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston. Thank you all for being here, and welcome. Linda, I'm going to start with you. First of all, give us a quick overview of your very successful program.
Well, it is, and so much of the Year Up story was quite familiar. We're a 115-year-old institution in Boston that serves low-income boys and girls who are school age, so they're between the ages of 6 and 18, through a system of informal guidance and philosophy that entails skill building, it entails leadership opportunities, it entails giving disadvantaged young people a sense of hope and confidence in the future.
Go ahead, finish.
What I was most struck by in about Year Up are the elements of positive peer pressure, very structured, intentional activities that can be directly connected to a payoff at the end, that of earning money, that of securing a job, but at the same time, there's a psychic benefit, which is what you were referring to, Chet, in that participant smile. She now feels as though she has her life plan because she's participated in this program that surrounded her by all of the supports that so many of our impoverished children, teenagers, young adults simply do not have at home or in the broader community.
As an educator, Dr. Aoun, you must be pretty impressed with that Year Up program.
Absolutely,
for what you saw here.
Absolutely, very innovative, and also what I love about the program is that it is scalable. They are taking it to other cities, and this is what we need to do. Whatever we need to innovate in, we need to think about scalability. It is not something that we're doing for 10 students or 10 people. We're doing it in such a way that it becomes a model for the rest of the world.
Dr. Gottlieb?
Well, you know, I think Bob Gallery put it best here from the business community's perspective. This is enlightened self-interest. The notion here is in our population there is a skills gap. There's a group of people in particular who are the greatest opportunity for us. With a relatively flat population, it is people, as you were pointing out, Paul, for whom education has failed, for whom the traditional systems have failed. And we need to design programs in education that are informed by business and by business that are informed by education so that that kind of direct empathy can develop programs that are likely to be successful. That's where the innovation is. That's where, frankly, the Boston Foundation found leadership in creating SkillWorks to put together people in industry to look at where their needs were and to start to create career paths for entry-level workers so that we have the opportunity to grow a workforce that will be loyal to us, that will be in the environment, and that will have great jobs that will change those communities.
I would like to challenge the greater Boston community to focus on teens as well as young adults. So the 16 to 18-year-olds who come to us, and what they want more than anything else is the opportunity to earn money in a way that is socially responsible, in a way that potentially leads to the kind of self-confidence and career-building opportunities that they can see others having.
And obviously they're willing to make their own investment
Absolutely.
in the program and spend the time and apply themselves and strive to get better.
I think also, Chet, if I may, This program has a specific importance and specific relevance. As a nation, we don't have a good vocational system. And what this program is doing is filling the gap. So it should lead us also to think about the necessity of starting vocational schools. Germany has been doing it. They have been very successful about it, and we are behind them. And there is no reason that we should not start building a vocational system that will address the needs that Gary was talking about.
And Paul, you wanted to add?
Well, I think the teen situation that Linda talks about is grim indeed. A report by Colin Powell recently pointed out that of the 50 largest urban school districts, the dropout rate is 50%. In Boston, it's somewhat better, but still not good enough. So we're really washing out whole generations of kids who really have no prospect of participating in the mainstream of American life. We've really got to fix that, and programs like Year Up, I think, are giving us some direction there.
Yeah, Linda, you were head of the Boys and Girls Clubs for, well, but better than 10 years. From your vantage point, what do you see that gives you some hope for the future?
The Boston Foundation, for one, has played a leadership role in helping us to hold a mirror up to ourselves as a civic community, and to think about those individuals, those citizens, as well as those geographical areas in our city, in our region, that are not benefiting by the tremendous growth, the tremendous development of our information economy. And so the possibilities, I think, are quite intriguing. Collaboration is clearly a theme. Innovation is related to collaboration. Boston has had a history of our, rowing our boats kind of alone. I think that there is a sea change, to stay within the water metaphor, a sea change, underway that is reflected in the Commonwealth Compact, this very exciting initiative. And I know that at all of our institutions, I think, are signing on to work together, to share data, to share best practices, so that Boston and our region can be a place that welcomes people and provides opportunities for people of all backgrounds.
Yes. Gary, earlier in this, I'm sorry, go ahead. You wanted to make a comment.
The employers in this area have been innovators and have tried to partner. So the work at the teen level in trying to focus on summer jobs, then after-school programs that are both violence reducers as well as starting to create career paths, using job coaches like those were identified in Year Up to help prepare kids to do connection between the school and the workplace in order for there to be an upside opportunity, gives employers the opportunity to have access to those kids, gives those kids special kinds of skills and gives them a leg up. Then working together with higher education, the opportunity to use that experience to inform it, to build on it, like in programs like the co-op programs that Northeastern has been an innovator in for years and leads the nation.
Well, the Private Industry Council, which you are head of, is also very involved.
So the issues around, I'm the chair of the board of the Private Industry Council. Neil Sullivan runs it, and I think that, for years, the Private Industry Council has focused on trying to connect school to the workplace, trying to create opportunities for people who have employment challenges and fill those skills gaps so that there are career paths for entry-level employees as well. And now to focus on dropout reduction and dropout recovery. As Paul was describing, this is a major tragedy here. PIC has actually led a set of programs on trying to identify kids in the public schools through large databases, bring them back to school, and the reinforcing activity from their perspective as they're reporting it, those children, those young men and women, is in fact having work opportunities after school and some that are related to summer programs as well that kind of reinforce their being retained in education.
Let me expand on this point that we have an example of a great partnership that I discovered when I came to Northeastern between Gary Gottlieb's hospital and Northeastern, my new institution. We have adopted a school, Health Careers Academy, and it's a school on campus the students are working with us and with Gary's operation. That means that they are interns there in the hospital. At the same time, they're using our facilities, they're using the labs, where they are working with the faculty and the students in the same way that they are working with the hospital and the nurses and the doctors. What are the results? 100% of the students are now going to college, college-bound. That's a kind of example that we need to have, and it's scalable. If every institution can partner with another one and adopt a set of schools, where we are in business here in Boston.
And this school is a Boston public school, essentially requires entry only by lottery. It's over 90% underrepresented minority kids. Yeah. And the degree of excitement among that population and among its leadership and teachers to be able to move those kids forward, both for entry-level positions but also for higher education, is just remarkable.
I might point out that it's also a pilot school, which is a very different, yes, much more flexible, absolutely, model of schooling that is really making a difference. And we don't have enough pilot schools yet, but I think we have to remember that those year-up kids in many cases were failed by, absolutely, a too rigid, too bureaucratic, backward-looking school system, and the pilot schools are another very important ingredient of making the mainstream system actually work, as opposed to continuing to have to invent the year-ups of the world, yeah, as we go forward.
I mean, what you're talking about is prevention as opposed to intervention. Year Up arguably is an intervention program because there were failures in the home environment, you know, in the neighborhood environment, in the public school environment. But for us to emphasize innovative approaches like pilot schools, like charter schools, like after-school programs that focus not only on the young person, but also on connecting the family and all the other institutions that touch that young person's life, that's a way to really, you know, bring all of these innovations to scale.
Well, let's talk about a little more innovation here, continue our tour of innovation in Massachusetts with a stop in Lowell.
Well, Chet, to be successful, a city or a region must be able to retool, really reinvent itself to thrive in an evolving economy. And that's just what we found in the Merrimack Valley. Lowell, Massachusetts, the site of America's first industrial revolution. The Merrimack River fueled the mills that spawned the nation's textile industry in the 1800s. Lowell has seen its share of boom and bust. When textiles moved south, its mills closed down. And later, Lowell-based Wang Computer led the first information revolution in the 1980s, only to collapse as personal computers took over the market in the 90s. Now this city of innovation is bouncing back again, building on its past to move forward.
Lowell has been a model, both in terms of using historic preservation as a tool for economic development and urban revitalization.
30 years ago, Lowell gained designation as a National Historic Park, opening it up to federal funding. Instead of destroying its empty mills, the city partnered with private developers to renovate them, creating nearly 3 million square feet of condominiums and business space, attracting new residents and new companies to the area.
We've actually had about 30 new businesses open up in the downtown.
Lowell's ethnic population brings diversity to its business community. Many of the city's Cambodian, Brazilian, and Dominican residents are running successful retail stores and restaurants, and keeping Lowell's economy from becoming dependent on one industry. The city is also embracing new technologies like the lightweight plastic solar cells manufactured in Lowell at Canarca, and training the next generation of innovators at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. Here at the school's plastics lab, students are using corn sugars to create biodegradable plastic.
In an innovation economy, the future is dependent upon a highly motivated, highly skilled workforce, and I think that's probably the university's greatest contribution to the region.
After serving 15 years in Congress, Marty Meehan returned to his hometown and his alma mater last year to become Chancellor of UMASS Lowell.
We are one of only 4 National Science Foundation merit-based nano-manufacturing centers in the country, and that gives us a niche.
Chancellor Meehan took us on a walking tour to show us how the city, the state, and the university are working together to transform the region.
This is the center of our East Campus. In many ways, the East Campus, well, before the university invested here, and there's over $100 million in public investment, the buildings in back were all vacant mill buildings. Today they're condominiums. The university owned that property, and gave that property up so there could be some private development. This is where our baseball team plays and the Lowell Spinners play. But this has been not only a significant investment by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the university, but I think it's an investment that has paid dividends for the city as well. It brings thousands of people to the city of Lowell many nights in the summertime. This is the Riverwalk, and what it basically does is connect our residence halls of the university to the baseball park, to the Tsongas Arena, and then eventually to the downtown. And this has really made Lowell a destination city, but also made the University of Massachusetts Lowell a destination university. I think the restoration of the mills, the historic park, and the public-private partnerships in Lowell are really symbolic of what older urban communities need to do in order to remake themselves. And Lowell has done that over and over and over again. It's one of the great economic success stories, I think, in the country today.
Well, Year Up and UMASS Lowell, as Marty said, innovative approaches that can transform a city and a region.
Well, and I think this shows that there's nothing, no such thing as permanent success for a city. Cities come together, they're formed based on an economic rationale that eventually disappears, as has been the case here when the Industrial Revolution moved on. But bringing their best assets forward, their historical assets, they found a way with great leadership, I think, from Paul Tsongas and Marty Meehan and many others in the community. They found a way to build a new future for Lowell. But you have to gather yourself for that process of revitalization every generation or so, or cities can settle into, as some have, unfortunately, in Massachusetts, really a prolonged drift downward.
And Lowell is probably the most diverse city in the Commonwealth.
There is a great lesson here, Chet. And I would like to go back to something that Chancellor MEEHAN said. He talked about the National Science Center for Nanomanufacturing. This center is based on a partnership involving 3 institutions, Lowell, Northeastern, and University of New Hampshire. I can tell you the competition was fierce. We competed against the best institutions in the nation. And why did we win it? Why did we become the center? Because we partnered together. No institution is self-sufficient. And frankly, at this point, we are celebrating our partnership. But if we look at the concentration of talent and institutions in Massachusetts, we are not doing enough of that. No one can beat us if we can get together. And there are many examples like the one we are talking about. I mentioned the partnership with Gary. We have another one on the Center for Human Disease that we are working on. But the moral of the lesson is very simple. No institution is self-sufficient nowadays.
Excellent points, all.
One other observation from Marty's comments, and that has to do with public investment. Before Lowell was designated a National Historic Site, highlighting its rich history and its, physical infrastructure, it was designated a state historic site. And so it really was the big idea of urban revitalization during Michael Dukakis's first administration. And so much as you've described institutions needing to collaborate to drive innovation, public entities need to play a major role in creating an environment, in providing an infrastructure, and that means money to be invested so that private entities, whether they're academic institutions, whether they're companies, are able to take root and to create scalable outcomes.
And the issue that both of you bring up that Marty articulated was the notion of public-private partnerships. Yes. So the notion of funds from 2 different streams being able to have gain sharing that's evident both in improvement to the tax base, stabilization of a population, allowing for safety, for housing, and for growth, but knowing that there's a stake that the private enterprise has that is dependent upon the success of the public enterprise, and that the public enterprise's investment is just that. It's not a handout. It's not a notion of just urban renewal. It's a notion of urban investment with the attempt to have long-term outcomes that are planned and strategic, as you pointed out, Paul, with the notion that they're flexible enough to somehow look that the next iteration may be somewhat different, but that the partnership still has to remain.
There's another point here as well. What's in the middle of these partnerships? Very often universities, which typically are located in cities and have really become a crucial economic asset, despite the fact that they are nonprofits and tax exempt, which is arousing controversy as it does, you know, every couple of years. But I think we've got to really change our mindset, because the universities are the drivers in many ways of the most exciting development. Of course, in concert with affiliated health institutions like Brigham and Women's Hospital and our remarkable infrastructure. We have 8 research universities, including Northeastern, of course, inside Route 128. There is not another place on the planet that has that kind of concentration of talent and knowledge and research dollars, and I don't think we really appreciate it fully.
And it reduces the barriers to recruitment. I mean, the costs of recruitment and retention of highly skilled, secondarily educated, and then graduate educated populations are substantial. And to have that population captive within a given environment creates a much cheaper way for industry to be able to come into that environment. You know, you stand on Massachusetts Avenue and look in both directions at the universities that are there and the high-tech industries that are there. The innovation of the United States sits in a very, very small radius because of the universities that are feeding those opportunities. That's right.
Yeah, but we have an opportunity here to bundle our intellectual creativity, and we haven't been doing enough of that. Every year, all the institutions generate new innovation, and we usually call it intellectual property. We patent that. Every institution has a set of lawyers working with it on crafting barriers to getting those intellectual property results into the marketplace. So suppose that you are a company. Boston and Massachusetts are very attractive. Everybody wants to come and work here and establish a company here if they can have easy access to this intellectual property. Suppose now, Chet, that you want to start a company. You have to work with each institution, and for each institution you need to have different regulations. It is time maybe to think about bringing all the institutions together, hospitals, universities, all the institutions that produce innovation and new intellectual property, and saying, let's adopt one format. And it will facilitate what we have. That's the first step. It hasn't been done. It could be done. No one has the intellectual property concentration that we have in the world.
It's fascinating points that you've sent a clear signal as to how important the relationship is between Northeastern and the city of Boston. Now, what other things are you doing to increase that relationship?
The first thing we do is to listen. The last thing we do is to go to the community or to any element in Boston or any member of this great community and say, we know what you need. We know what you want to do. The first aspect is listening, and then putting together partnerships with the community in order to move the community forward. And as Gary said, it's enlightened self-interest. So we have, our students are involved in over 110,000 hours of community service. I don't call it community service, I call it service learning. If I want to start listing all these programs, I'll spend 2.5 hours, and we don't have time to do it. But the first and foremost aspect is we cannot do it unless we listen to the needs of the community.
Now, listening is not a quality necessarily associated with universities, so I think this is a striking comment by President.
It's not innovative.
It's an innovation, Linda said.
Exactly.
I'm just fascinated by Dr. Aoun's story here about the partnering, and rather than set up barriers in protecting intellectual property, let's share it for the greater good of the greater community.
His wisdom is great here. You know, the whole issue of looking at growing the life sciences industry and the competitiveness that Massachusetts has and leveraging that going forward has had the Massachusetts Life Technology Council and others really examining what the opportunities are. And one of the great barriers that industry sees is that essentially there is a different format in negotiating with every owner and innovator of intellectual property, largely in the universities and the hospitals and in other independent labs that have invited and brought industry here. But the notion that they want to do clinical trials with us or they want to innovate with us has substantial barriers that are associated with some of our own self-protection. And we need to think about how it is that we manage that in a way that's beneficial for us and at the same time beneficial for industry and the community.
We need to also look at another barrier, and that comes from the fact that we do have 351 cities and towns. We do have home rule in our state. We do have then 351 sets of zoning codes, of approval processes, and that has also proven to be a barrier to business generation, and which can lead to employment, which can lead to obviously a more thriving economy. So I, think we need to issue a charge, not so much to all 351 cities and towns, but certainly to the state, to take a leadership role in helping to establish a consistent set of expectations and possibilities with regard to business location.
I
don't think that's happened
yet. To do that. I mean, at least they're moving in that direction.
One of the really encouraging things that happened is that in the latter part of the Romney administration, his economic development chief, Ranch Kimball, really made some great progress on streamlined permitting and on getting the state on a marketing footing. So we're actually going out and courting business and saying, please come to Massachusetts, which we used to think was beneath us. And the new governor picked all of that up, didn't say, oh, that's not my program, we're going to have our own program, said, this is really working and we're going to build on it. And that's the kind of behavior we really need to see, because in some ways, as Linda points out, the welcome mat for business still isn't fully out in Massachusetts.
Right. We need to take a break. When we return, what you might call an energizing tour of the North End.